Part 43. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 427. The reason why Ling Chu woke up so quickly was because she was in good health. It was all thanks to the jade pendants and sets of jade heads and masks she put in the system. Since Princess Dingyuan knew that Ling Chu liked jade pieces, she found all the jade jewelry in her dowry and gave them to her. King Dingyuan and Han Lin also gave her several pieces of jade pendants. Ling Chu put them into the system before leaving Beijing. The energy of the system has been exhausted in order to hold back the flood. After she passed out, she heard the alarm sound in her mind that the system was about to be disarmed, so she had to let the system absorb all the jewelry. Seeing her open her eyes, Ning Chui breathed a sigh of relief. Is there anything uncomfortable? Ling Chu smiled bitterly in her heart. She felt uncomfortable all over, as if she was about to fall apart. If she hadn't been out of danger, she would have been lying down on the spot and sleeping for 3 days and 3 nights. He could hear the sound of flood water behind her, and she had to grit her teeth and stand up. Ling Chu turned his head and looked around quickly, then stretched out his hand and pointed to the east. Can you please help me get there? Everyone looked in the direction of her finger, and there was a desolate area with nothing there. A man took one look and then withdrew his gaze, and said with an unhappy face, "You asked us to come to Deluo Mountain, saying that we won't die if we go up the mountain. But this bridge cannot be crossed at all. Do you want everyone to come here and wait to die?" Hearing the man's complaint, Ning Chui suddenly turned around and glared at him, his expression as cold as a knife. If he hadn't been holding Ling Chu with both hands, he could hardly help but draw his sword and chop the man down. The man was startled by the terrifying murderous look in his eyes and hurriedly hid in the crowd. Those who wanted to follow up and ask questions were also frightened into silence by Ning Chui. Ling Chu only glanced briefly and then withdrew his gaze. He stretched out his hand to pull Ning Chui's sleeve and said, "Sir, let's go. Human nature is selfish, and there is always a shortage of those who do not know what is good or bad." The flood was imminent, and Ling Chu had no time to care. Ning Chui lowered his head and glanced at her. Instead of helping her go, he bent down and picked her up. The emperor's eyes circled around the two of them in surprise, and his lips moved. He wanted to say something, but he swallowed the words as they reached his lips. In my heart, I smiled with relief. This kid seemed to have finally figured it out. Ling Chu's eyes widened in shock. This was still in front of others. Why did Ning Chui hug her in front of the emperor? As soon as she opened her mouth, Ning Chui knew what she was going to say. Will you have to cast spells later? Save some energy, otherwise you will faint again. These words hit Ling Chu's weak spot. Forget it, she has already hugged her if she didn't want to, so she might as well save some energy. If you have to cast a spell for a while, and you don't have enough physical strength, you will definitely faint again. Seeing that she was silent, Ning Chui quickly glanced at her and said softly, "As soon as I leave Yangkou County, I will ask the emperor for a marriage. He is letting her not worry about other people's opinions. With the emperor's marriage, her reputation will not be affected." Ling Chu looked up in surprise, but all he could see was his firm chin. Master Xindaoning really has confidence in her, so he is not worried at all that they will not be able to get to Deluo Mountain. Not hearing her objection to the marriage proposal, Ning Chui's heart slowly dropped, and her lips slowly raised. Ling Chu wanted to say that the marriage was not urgent, but before she could speak, a system notification sounded in her mind. Ding! Energy stone mine detected. Ling Chu was overjoyed and pointed in the direction guided by the system. "Sir, over there." Okay, perhaps Ling Chu didn't refuse, which made Ning Chui's tense mood much better, and he whispered back. He held her and walked forward quickly. "Put me down." Ling Chu felt happy when he saw the picture scanned in the system. She only calculated that there would be a glimmer of hope here, but she didn't know what it was. I didn't expect that there was an emerald mine here. Although this mine is not big and the quality is only average, it is enough for the system to absorb. Ling Chu glanced around and saw a fairly flat stone, so he immediately walked over. Although the system absorbed the jade jewelry she placed in the space, causing her to wake up. But she had exhausted so much energy when blocking the flood, which made her body very weak. Seeing her staggering, Ning Chui quickly stretched out his hand to support her arm. Ling Chu didn't refuse, smiled at him and thanked him. Just as he was about to sit down on the rocks, Ning Chui quickly took off his cloak and spread it on the rocks. "Thank you, sir. There is no need to be so polite between you and me." Okay, Ling Chu didn't say anything more, but reminded herself to remember Lord Ning's kindness to her. Ning Chui's expression softened a little when he saw her answer. After Ling Chu sat down, he assumed a meditating posture and secretly immediately started absorbing jadeite into the system. The Emperor and the Imperial Guards watched from a distance and had no idea what Ling Chu was doing. They only thought that she was meditating to let her body recover before casting spells. Hearing the sound of the approaching flood, the people became more and more anxious and wanted to complain. But when he saw the cold-looking Imperial Guard holding a long sword in his hand, he was frightened. Ning Chui ignored everyone's looks and didn't ask Ling Chu. He just stood aside silently to protect her. Not long after, he saw it started to rain again, and he couldn't help but frown. Just when he was about to turn around and tell Wei Feng to find some big leaves to protect Ling Chu from the rain, he saw Yin Sha flying towards here carrying an umbrella and performing Qing Kung Fu. When he got close, he handed the umbrella to him without saying a word. Ning Chui glanced at him appreciatively, reached out to take it, and held it on Ling Chu's head. Yin Sha quickly glanced at Ling Chu and then withdrew his gaze, silently turning around and going back. Although he didn't know what the princess was doing, he knew that Ning Chui definitely didn't want to watch her get wet in the rain. Wei Feng glared at Yin Sha, who came back as if he had a toothache. He had seen him spending 10 taels of silver to buy an umbrella from a commoner on the side, and he secretly slandered him for being a prodigal. Unexpectedly, he was helping the lord to please the princess. I really underestimated him. He is usually as taciturn as a piece of wood, but he turns out to have such a frivolous character. No wonder adults always value him more. Although Wei Feng cursed in his heart, he didn't say anything. Seeing that Yin Sha was doing it for the sake of the princess, he didn't care about him. Yin Sha could tell at a glance that Wei Feng was jealous, but he glanced sideways and looked away. Ling Chu didn't know about the feud between Wei Feng and Yin Sha, and the system was absorbing energy like crazy. The talismans she left on the road to block the flood were almost all broken through. She had to hurry up and let the system absorb as much energy as possible before the flood came. The roar of the flood is getting closer and closer, but no one has thought of a way to cross the river. Someone finally couldn't help crying loudly, it's over, we are going to drown." Some of the Imperial Guardsmen were upset by the cries and just wanted to scold them. But suddenly I heard someone shouting, "What is that?" Everyone raised their heads and happened to see the much longer shovel and small hammer flying towards the river from the direction of Ling Chu, and in the blink of an eye they were placed on both ends of the river. The crowd was silent for a moment, then suddenly burst into ecstatic shouts, "Great, we are saved, we can cross the river and go up the mountain. Please vote. Please vote. Please vote. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times." Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 428. Seeing Ling Chu build 2 bridges with a big shovel and a small hammer, everyone almost cried with joy. Gong Gong An's heart quickly dropped. But when he saw that the flood was coming, he hurriedly said, "Your Majesty, it's time to go." The Emperor didn't say anything. He glanced at Ling Chu, who was still meditating, and Ning Chui, who was standing by silently, and finally walked towards the shovel. When the people saw the flood coming, they rushed toward the river in panic. Fortunately, there were guardsmen maintaining order, otherwise everyone might have been crowded into a pile and someone might have fallen into the river. In order to allow everyone to cross the river as quickly as possible, Ling Chu could only make the system absorb the energy of the jade ore crazily. Going in and out like this at such a fast speed made her body feel uncomfortable. But now it was at the last moment, no matter how difficult it was, she had to grit her teeth and persevere. Otherwise, all the previous efforts will be wasted, which would be a huge loss. This trip to assist the people in Yanqu County to evacuate, although she had the emperor's order, she also had selfish motives. After all, if she could save so many people, she would have gained a lot of merit. While Ling Chu was distracted, the flood had already rushed over. Ning Chui had to remind, everyone has evacuated, it's time for us to leave. After Ling Chu came to his senses in shock, he quickly cut off the absorption of the system and stood up as soon as he put his hands on it. Unexpectedly, he got up too violently, his vision went dark, and he fell forward. Fortunately, Ning Chui reached out in time to support her, so she didn't fall. Seeing that her expression was still not good, Ning Chui simply picked her up, turned around and used Qinggong to fly towards the river. As soon as he stepped onto the shovel, the first wave of his head was like a ferocious beast, roaring and slapping at Ning Chui's back. When the people standing at the foot of Deluo Mountain saw this scene, their hearts were raised. They couldn't help shouting at them, "Run quickly, the flood is coming, hurry, hurry, hurry." Ning Chui did not look back, put her toes on the big shovel, and once again hugged Ling Chu and rushed towards the other side of Deluo Mountain. Ling Chu was in his arms, blocked by his tall body, and could not see the flood chasing after him. But this does not prevent her from casting spells. Hans made a quick seal, then he raised his hand and smashed a yellow talisman on Ning Chui's back. The talisman paper hit the wave and exploded into countless water droplets in the blink of an eye, falling from the mid-air. Although the second wave of water followed closely, Ning Chui had already rushed out a large distance with Ling Chu in his arms, and did not pose any danger to them anymore. Everyone standing at the foot of Deluo Mountain breathed a sigh of relief. Even though Ning Chui was hugging someone, Ling Chu's weight was almost negligible to him. In a few ups and downs, he had already crossed the long bridge built with shovels and landed in front of everyone. He lowered his eyes and glanced at the person in his arms before gently putting her down. Ling Chu endured the embarrassment and waved the shovel and hammer back into the system. She originally thought that when she saw Ning Chui hugging her in public, someone would scold her for immorality or something like that. Unexpectedly, she was greeted with warm applause. Some people even ignored the muddy ground and knelt down at her and kowtowed, "Thank you, girl, for saving the lives of our whole family. You will be our family's benefactor from now on. If it weren't for you, our whole family would have drowned in the flood today. Yes, 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 Fairy Lady is our benefactor in Yanqu County. Such a great kindness, and kindness will never be forgotten. Our family left in a hurry, and we didn't have time to bring anything with us. We only had these copper coins with us. The Fairy Lady saved us by doing this. It was so hard. Don't be too short on this little money. Use the eggs you bought to replenish your health." Although when they were first forced to abandon their homes and evacuate, almost all of these people were full of complaints. Also, they were forced by the imperial guards to keep going, and everyone dared to be angry but dare not speak out. But at this moment, all the dissatisfaction in their hearts disappeared, and they were only full of gratitude to Ling Chu. After all, if it hadn't been for her, all of them would have been drowned in the flood. Seeing that these people were grateful for their kindness, Ling Chu's fatigue disappeared a lot. She just refused everything that everyone sent her. She didn't take all the credit for saving people. "Although I played a role in this evacuation, the one you should thank most is the Emperor. If it weren't for the Emperor's kindness and his heart that loves the people like his own son, these forbidden army and I would not have been able to save so many of you. You have to thank me. Just thank the Emperor, Lord Xianing, and the imperial army for helping you evacuate. Although the emperor did not want outsiders to know that he had left Beijing, he ordered the people of Yangkou County to evacuate this time. It was impossible to hide such a big thing from outsiders. And there is no need to hide it. The emperor has saved so many people, which is of great benefit to his reputation and the country. It is time for the world to know his kindness. Along the way, although everyone saw that the emperor was a noble person, they also had various guesses in their minds. But no one dared to think about the emperor. When they heard that he was the 95-year-old emperor, everyone was shocked. The smart ones knelt down immediately after regaining their senses and said, "Long live the emperor, long live the emperor. Thank you for saving my life." With the leader taking the lead, others followed suit and knelt down, kowtowing and saying various words of gratitude excitedly. The emperor was also very happy after saving tens of thousands of lives, but he was still thinking about rushing to Xianqing Temple. After a few brief remarks, he comforted everyone that although their belongings were gone, they could go to Bingzhou Prefecture to find Wu Ji, the prefect. The court would arrange for him to open a granary to store grain and provide porridge, and to raise money and materials to help everyone survive the flood. After hearing the emperor's words, the people in Yangkou County were very happy and kowtowed one after another to thank him. The emperor waved his hand to signal everyone to level up, and then let them leave. These people were tired and hungry after escaping death, and they had no intention of staying longer. They all wanted to get to Bingzhou capital as soon as possible so that they could settle down after receiving money and food. To get to Bingzhou Prefecture from here, the only way is through Deluo Mountain. Everyone carried them up the mountain in twos and threes. The emperor is also preparing to leave with his people. Ling Chu naturally wanted to follow, but he didn't expect that she suddenly fainted without warning just after taking a few steps. Fortunately, Ning Chui was right beside her and caught her in time. Because Ling Chu was a disciple of Master Xianyi and the daughter of King Dingyuan, the emperor had a high regard for her. In addition, Ling Chu was able to save tens of thousands of people during this trip, and Ling Chu also deserved a lot of credit. Seeing that she fainted, the emperor immediately asked Sun Yuanzheng to check her pulse. After half a cup of tea, Sun Yuanzheng withdrew his hand with a solemn expression. The princess has cast spells many times along the way, and her mind has been greatly exhausted. She urgently needs a good rest now to recuperate. Otherwise, I'm afraid, her life will be in danger. The emperor frowned. He knew that Ling Chu was not in good health, but he didn't expect it to be so serious. However, he rushed to Xianqing Temple in a hurry. Seeing Ning Chui's worried look, the emperor immediately ordered him to stay and take care of Ling Chu, and wait for her to get better before going to Xianqing Temple. Ning Chui had this intention, and the emperor's words were exactly what he wanted. After the emperor left with his people, Ning Chui carried Ling Chu up to Deluo Mountain and found a cave that could shelter him from the wind and rain. Ling Chu fell into a coma and didn't wake up until the next day. As soon as she opened her eyes, she saw Ning Chui sitting next to her. She subconsciously wanted to thank him, but when she looked up and saw his face, her expression changed. After a quick calculation, Ling Chu stood up immediately and said, "Hurry up, the emperor is in danger." Thanks to Penglai Jiangxiu, 202209120554038777, Sunyan Moixi, 1502162035296889, Agia, 2022091401024528, Eagle in the Wind, Kalinglan and other book friends for their monthly support. Thanks to 5453, Pros. BA, 2020070613042538, Pen Yongfang, Tao Yao. EB, Guan Guan. DC, This Moment, Laugh With You, .v, 201703181914308335, Chen, East of Eden, Fei Fi, love to read historical novels. The Boy, All Living Beings, Forget Me Not, Lazy Man Lin Lang, Why Do You Grow Old, Free as the Wind 459, Xianbin, CHLWCH, China Fuse, Star and Sky, Crystal at Diamond, Falling Leaves No Autumn. Ad, Daoyo. EB, Petunia Under the Scorching Sun and other book friends recommendation votes support. Thanks to Hungziu and the book friends who support Hungziu. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 429. Unicorn took a few breaths, raised his hand to wipe the sweat from his face, dragged his heavy and sore legs, walked a few steps forward, and said with a bitter look on his face, "Your Majesty, please take a rest first." Pang Tong glanced at the Emperor's pale face, his eyes showing worry. "Your Majesty, please sit here and rest for a while. I will continue to lead the people to search. When I find a way out, I will come back to pick you up." Although the Emperor had no expression on his face, his legs were extremely tired after walking for such a long time. Hearing the two men's advice, he nodded in agreement. Commander Pang was just about to divide everyone into small teams and scatter them to continue looking for a way out. But he saw Wei Feng sitting down on the other side. He couldn't help but frowned. Wei Feng happened to look this way, and one look at Commander Pang's expression revealed what he was thinking. "Commander Pang, it's better not to waste your efforts. We are facing a wall. Even if our legs are broken, we can't get out." Commander Pang pursed his lips and smiled bitterly in his heart. He also knew that the chances of finding a way out were slim, but it was not an option for them to be stuck here. Besides, the Emperor is still on the side, so if you can't find a way out, you have to find it. Knowing that all your efforts are in vain, instead of wandering around like a headless fly, it is better to conserve some strength to avoid encountering any emergencies again. It's just that Wei Feng knew that Commander Pang couldn't make the decision, so he didn't bother to persuade him. "Your Majesty, we have been walking for such a long time and we are already exhausted. Since we cannot get out, it is best to conserve our strength. When the princess comes, we will be able to get out naturally." Wei Feng had just finished speaking, but the Emperor had not said anything yet. A forbidden soldier named Zheng Qi frowned and said with dissatisfaction, "Your Majesty is still in a hurry to go to Xianqing Temple. Although we have been looking for so long and haven't found a way out, we are really tired. But no one can give up until the end. I know the princess has something to do, but she fainted and I don't know when she will wake up. Besides, what if we have to wait 10 days and a half, or what if she can't find us? Trapped here without food or water, how long do you think everyone can hold on?" Wei Feng subconsciously wanted to open his mouth to retort. With the princess ability, how could he not find them? But before he spoke, Yin Sha on the side quickly gave him a wink. "What Zheng Weibei said makes sense. The princess doesn't know when she will be able to find us. It's better to rely on others than to rely on ourselves. We still have to find a way out as soon as possible, otherwise no one will be able to bear it without food or water." Wei Feng looked at Yin Sha suspiciously. Although his words were reasonable, but, why did he feel that this guy was a little abnormal? The Emperor has always paid attention to Ning Chui, and he also knows a lot about Wei Feng and Yin Sha who have been accompanying him to protect him. Even Wei Feng could tell that Yin Sha was abnormal, so he naturally noticed it too. His eyes calmly circled around Yin Sha and Zheng Qi, and then quickly looked away. The Emperor said majestically as usual, "Everyone listen to the order and rest where you are for a quarter of an hour before continuing to find a way out." Yes, everyone present bowed their hands. No one noticed that a flash of joy quickly flashed in Zheng Qi's lowered eyes. When he looked up again, his face returned to normal. In the wilderness, everyone was very tired and not very particular. Sitting on the ground in twos and threes. Wei Feng was full of questions and wanted to ask Yin Sha, but when he glanced at Zheng Qi sitting beside him, he hesitated and swallowed his words. Although these imperial guards are all members of the emperor, they are not of the same mind as him and Yin Sha. Not everything can be said in front of them. 15 minutes passed in the blink of an eye. Commander Pang once again led his people to scatter in search of a way out. After coming down from Deluo Mountain, everyone set off to Xianqing Temple. After traveling for a long time, we found that there was no village or shop in front of us, so we had no choice but to sleep one night in the wilderness. When it gets dark, everyone wakes up and sets off again. Unexpectedly, after walking for a long time, I found that I couldn't get out of this wilderness no matter how I walked. At first everyone believed it, but later they tried various methods but could not get out of this wasteland. Yin Sha had no expression on his face, looking for a way out as carefully as he did the other Forbidden Army soldiers. In fact, he followed Zheng Qi intentionally or unintentionally, secretly paying attention to his movements. About an hour later, the sky was starting to get dark, but Zheng Qi didn't see anything unusual. Yin Sha frowned slightly. Could it be that his intuition was wrong and there was nothing wrong with Zheng Qi? Just when Yin Sha thought he had wrongly blamed Zheng Qi, he saw him turning his head to look around at the nearby Forbidden Army who were looking for a way out, intentionally or unintentionally. Yin Sha immediately looked away and only used the corner of his eyes to secretly pay attention to his movements. Not long after, Su Shi saw that no one was paying attention to him, so Zheng Qi walked towards the pile of rocks in front of him on the right. Once he was out of everyone's sight, he suddenly turned around and looked back. Fortunately, Yin Sha was alert and turned his body sideways before he turned around, pretending to lower his head and search among the tangled grass underground. This place is open in the wilderness. Zheng Qi quickly scanned the area and found that all the forbidden troops were still looking for a way out like headless flies. After he turned around, he quickly made several kneading gestures with his hands. Then he quickly took out a piece of talisman paper, whispered a spell, and then lit the talisman paper. Zheng Qi concentrated on the practice, the light in his eyes extinguishing with the burning flame of the talisman paper. Unexpectedly, there was a sudden sharp pain in my wrist, and the talisman fell to the ground. He screamed subconsciously, suddenly feeling something was wrong. He immediately fell silent and quickly stepped on the talisman under his feet. Zheng Qi held his wrist and turned his head, and saw Yin Sha walking towards him with cold eyes. He was shocked and confused, but asked angrily, "Did you smash my wrist?" When the surrounding imperial guards heard the movement, they all turned to look at the two of them in confusion. Yin Sha ignored everyone's gaze and said nothing. He just approached Zheng Qi step by step like an evil god. Zheng Qi's heart tightened when he noticed everyone's attention. He quickly put away the anger on his face and said calmly, "Yin Sha, be careful when you find the exit. Fortunately, I wasn't seriously injured, so let's forget it this time." Yin Sha stopped 3 steps away from him. Zheng Qi secretly breathed a sigh of relief. It turns out that Yin Sha accidentally hurt Zheng Qi, and it was just a trivial matter. The imperial guards were preparing to withdraw their gaze and continue to look for a way out. Unexpectedly, at this moment, Yin Sha suddenly rose from the ground and kicked Zheng Qi hard. Boom! Zheng Qi flew a few feet and hit the ground hard. He even opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood, which showed that Yin Sha's kick was not light. Everyone present was startled by this incident and quickly gathered around. Zheng Qi raised his hand and wiped the blood from his mouth. He got up from the ground and yelled at Yin Sha, "You are crazy, why did you hit people?" Yin Sha still didn't speak. He flashed to his side like a ghost, kicked him again, and finally stepped on his chest. Commander Pang hurried over in confusion and was about to ask Yin Sha why he beat Zheng Qi. Seeing Wei Feng pick up a half-burned piece of yellow paper from the ground, "Zheng Qi, you are so courageous. It turns out it was you who trapped us in this wilderness. Thanks to Luoluo for your monthly ticket support. Thanks to Lazy Linlang, Colorful Life, Ixixi, Pros. BA, Penyongfang, Panax Noto Ginseng. DB, 140212184021428, The Story of Goat Song and Eyes, Scarred, Luoluo, Curcuma, Silly by Yan AI, Caterpillar, All Living Things, Schwetter, Yan Guxing, 04, China Fuse, Hongju, V, Happy Baby, Xianbin, Autumn Rain, Freedom Like the Wine 459, CHLWCH, Shepherd Linksy, 641,417, Shangsuan Yu, Guan. DC, This Moment, Laughing with You, Care, Colored Life and other book friends recommendation vote support. Thanks to Hungziu and the book friends who support Hungziu. Please vote, please vote, please vote. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 430. Chapter 422 Who Deserves to Die? Although Wei Feng is not as careful as Yin Sha, he has been secretly paying attention to his movements since he discovered that Yin Sha was abnormal. This attention naturally revealed that Yin Sha was secretly paying attention to Zheng Qi's actions. Wei Feng was puzzled, but seeing the forbidden army surrounding him, he could only keep his doubts in his heart. Every move Zheng Qi made was not only seen by Yin Sha, but he also discovered it. The moment he saw Zheng Qi casting a spell and lighting the talisman, Wei Feng suddenly became angry. If Yin Sha hadn't been one step faster, he wouldn't have been able to help but take action. What, Zheng Qi trapped us here? Hearing what Wei Feng said, many of the imperial guards looked in disbelief. Some people couldn't help but wonder, it's not that what we encountered was a ghost breaking a wall. Zheng Qi is not a ghost. How could he do this? Wei Feng sneered, you have to ask Zheng Qi. Everyone looked at Zheng Qi, waiting for his explanation. Even the emperor walked over slowly. Zheng Qi was still lying on the ground, being stepped on by Yin Sha. What he remembered was that his martial arts skills were not as good as Yin Sha's, and he kicked him twice, causing serious injuries. The ribs on his body were probably broken by his kicks. As soon as he struggled, he felt severe pain all over his body. Unable to get up, Zheng Qi could only turn his head and defend himself to the emperor with an indignant expression, Your Majesty, I am wronged. I have learned the 6 arts of a gentleman and the art of war since elementary school, but I have never learned anything about breaking a wall. Just now Cai Chen has been looking for a way out. I don't know why Yin Sha suddenly beats me up. I don't even know why Wei Feng wants to accuse me unjustly. Why would I trap you all here for no reason? It's not going to do me any good. Besides, it's not just you, but myself as well. You said that I trapped everyone, which is ridiculous. There is no food or drink here, is it possible that I will trap myself to death? Seeing that Zheng Qi was so angry and aggrieved, some of the imperial soldiers couldn't help but turn to his side. Just as he was about to ask questions, Wei Feng said coldly, Did I wrong you? What a joke, I'm not blind. I saw you casting spells, chanting sutras, and burning this talisman with my own eyes. If it weren't for your fault, how could we have been trapped in this ghost place for a whole day without being able to get out? Zheng Qi's heart tightened. He didn't expect that even though he was careful, he was discovered by these 2 people. But he soon breathed a sigh of relief, so what if he was discovered? Other than a burned talisman, they had no other evidence. As long as he bites him to death and refuses to acknowledge it, these 2 people cannot kill him in front of the emperor. What Zheng Qi didn't expect was that the emperor poured a bucket of ice water on him himself. It's not just Wei Feng Yin Sha who saw you casting the burning talisman, but also me. I also saw it with my own eyes. Do you also want to say that I wronged you? Commander Peng and others were ashamed and uneasy. As the imperial guard, they did not notice the situation around the emperor, which was a dereliction of duty. Hearing the emperor's words, Wei Feng was surprised, and even Yin Xia was a little surprised. But Zheng Qi looked desperate. The emperor's face was as cold as a knife. Say, who ordered you? If you confess frankly and let everyone get out of here smoothly, I can spare your family's death. After being trapped for a whole day and wasting a whole day, the emperor was naturally extremely angry and wanted to have Zheng Qi killed immediately. But the top priority is to get out of this wilderness first. Zheng Qi's face turned pale and he didn't want to speak. Yin Xia looked at him expressionlessly and said nothing, but pressed hard with his feet. Zheng Qi immediately screamed again, and a pool of blood quickly poured out of his lips. The emperor didn't even blink. Don't tell me. Then the more than 30 lives of your Zheng family will have to be buried with you. Zheng Qi's face turned pale. He was still hesitating, but Yin Xia suddenly spoke, Zikan, Huishu Hutong, Lu Mansion. Zheng Bao'er, 9 years old. Yin Xia has always been taciturn and cherishes words like gold. This was also said concisely, and many people were confused when they heard it. Zheng Qi stared at Yin Xia in shock, wishing to eat him alive. You, despicable, he did not expect that Yin Xia would find out about his wife, but would not say anything about it, and would be used as a threat by him. Wei Feng saw that he dared to curse people when he was about to die, and he wanted to roll up his sleeves and beat them. Don't talk about how noble you are. You have a wife and a bunch of concubines at home, and you also secretly keep an outhouse. Don't take a to show what kind of person you are. Now he actually dares to murder the emperor. Infidelity, unrighteousness, kindness, and filial piety, how many of them do you have? The other imperial guards looked stunned, and then they realized that what Yin Xia was talking about was Zheng Qi's wife and children. The emperor glanced at Zheng Qi coldly, then turned to tell Unicorn, make a note of it, Huishu Ali, Lu Mansion. Zheng Qi's face was ashen. He was not afraid that the entire Zheng family would be killed. But the child born in the outer room was his only son. If his son is also killed, then the Zheng family will be extinct. Zheng Qi closed his eyes and quickly opened them. No one is instructing me. My master is Taoist Ming Zhen. I am just unhappy about the death of my master and the destruction of Kongxiu Temple. This moment of confusion trapped everyone here. I just want to help my master. I have no other evil intentions. There was no other expression on the emperor's face except majesty. It's hard to tell whether he believed what Zheng Qi said. Just when Zheng Qi was getting more and more uneasy, he heard the emperor ask, how to get out of here? Zheng Qi suppressed the joy in his heart and looked at Yin Xia coldly. I have to get up first before I can dismantle the formation. The emperor said nothing, only glanced at Yin Xia and motioned for him to let him go. Yin Xia released his foot with an expressionless expression. After getting free, Zheng Qi endured the pain and slowly got up from the ground. After coughing a few times and wiping the blood from his lips, he slowly took out a piece of talisman paper. The emperor looked at it coldly, and suddenly said with a murderous look on his face, if you have any evil intentions again, I will definitely kill all the 9 clans of the Zheng family. Zheng Qi paused and said in fear, I don't dare, please forgive me, your majesty. The emperor still had a cold expression on his face and motioned for him to disarm the formation. Zheng Qi responded respectfully, walked aside with the talisman, and began to cast spells. Although he was injured, Commander Pang was not relieved. With all the imperial troops, they watched his every move with vigilant expressions. Zheng Qi looked terrified, but there was a flash of sternness in his lowered eyes. After reciting a few spells, Zheng Qi lit the talisman in his hand. Everyone was staring at his movements without blinking, when 4 loud explosions suddenly occurred all around. Everyone was shocked. When they were about to attack Zheng Qi, they found that he had disappeared. And a black mist floated around in the blink of an eye, trapping everyone in the middle. Following this, A strange ringtone rang out from all around, accompanied by Zheng Qi's triumphant voice, "You all should die, ha ha ha. When these people die, they will enjoy endless glory and wealth, and even be able to be inferior to one person and superior to others." Commander Peng and others looked remorseful, but their expressions changed again when they heard various spooky ghost sounds coming from all around. Zheng Qi was still laughing wildly, just smiling, when he suddenly let out a scream. "The damned one, is you. Please vote. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times." Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 431. Originally trapped in the black fog where they couldn't see anything, many of the Imperial guards were injured by the terrifying ghost. Many people were angry, thinking that they were going to die miserably in the wilderness. Hearing Zheng Qi's screams and the familiar voice, everyone felt happy. Wei Feng even shouted happily, "The princess is here, Zheng Qi, just wait to die." Even though he was obscured by the black fog and couldn't see anything, it didn't hinder Wei Feng's confidence in Ling Chu. Zheng Qi was shocked and angry. After leaving Deluo Mountain, he pretended to be concerned and asked Sun Yuanzhang. Sun Yuanzhang clearly said that the princess was unconscious this time and would not wake up for 3 or 2 days. Even so, just in case, he waited until everyone had traveled another day and were far away from Deluo Mountain before taking action. And they also secretly made tricks on the road and set up many mazes. Normally she should still be unconscious in Deluotion. But not only did she wake up, she also found them at the critical moment. The key was the formation he set up on the road. He didn't sense anything unusual. Zheng Qi was extremely angry. Either she was pretending to be faint, or Sun Yuanzhang had deceived him. Many thoughts flashed through his mind, but Zheng Qi endured his anger and quickly got up from the ground and quickly moved away from the place. "There is darkness covering the area, so don't even think about finding him easily." Zheng Qi gave up ringing the bell for fear that Ling Chu would know where he was hiding from the sound of the bell. He took out a stack of talismans from his body and recited a spell quickly. Before he finished reciting the incantation, Zheng Qi let out another scream, accompanied by a heavy pounding on the ground. The people present became more and more happy after hearing this. But Wei Feng was a little dissatisfied. It would be a pity that he couldn't see Zheng Qi's tragic situation due to the black fog. He rolled his eyes and suddenly shouted, "Princess, beating people is too tiring. How about you remove this black mist and I can help you fight?" Zheng Qi's face twisted in anger, and soon he snorted in his heart. His black mist is no ordinary mist, it can be broken easily by resting. But as soon as he had this idea, he heard Ling Chu replying to Wei Feng with a smile, "Okay." Zheng Qi was a little surprised, although he didn't believe that Ling Chu could really break through his black fog easily. But after hesitating for a moment, he quickly recited the incantation, trying to strengthen the formation he had set up. I just didn't expect that as soon as he opened his mouth, a burst of fire suddenly lit up not far away. This light is not big, and the range it can illuminate is also limited. Zheng Qi's pupils shrank when he saw Ling Chu holding the talisman and Ning Chui beside her. Before he could take action again, he saw Ling Chu waving his hand, raising the burning talisman in his hand into the air, and at the same time softly shouted, "Go." The talisman paper seemed to be spiritual. Ling Chu had just finished speaking. It flew into the air, and then quickly flew around the wilderness. Wherever he passed, the black mist immediately dissipated. In just a few breaths, everyone's eyes lit up and their vision returned to normal. Everyone was very happy to see Ning Chui and Ling Chu, and even the emperor looked much better. Zheng Qi stared at Ling Chu in shock and anger. If he read it correctly, she didn't even recite the incantation, and just relied on a piece of talisman to break the formation he had put so much effort into. When did spellcasting become so easy? Even though you don't want to believe it, the facts are right in front of you. But Zheng Qi was still unwilling to give up. Now that the black fog was gone, he simply took out the rattle again. With the black mist gone, Wei Feng was very happy and immediately fulfilled his promise to help Ling Chu beat Zheng Qi. Seeing him rushing towards him, Zheng Qi snorted disdainfully. The rattle in his hand began to shake, and soon a strange ringing sound came out. Wei Feng suddenly felt a sharp pain in his head. Just as he stopped, he suddenly felt a gust of wind rushing toward him. His heart tightened. Unexpectedly, before the expected ghost could get close, he was blown away by a talisman from Ling Chu. Zheng Qi turned black with anger and rang the bell again. Some of the imperial guards who were not mentally determined heard the bell, and their eyes quickly became confused. Then it turned scarlet, and there was a feeling of depression in my heart. Some people even became bloodthirsty and unknowingly drew their swords. Ning Chui's eyes were cold, and the strange ringing sound could confuse people's minds. The ringing became louder and sharper, just when someone couldn't help but want to slash his comrades with the sword in his hand. Ling Chu slowly took out a simple rattle and shook it. As the clear and melodious bell rang, it not only covered up Zheng Qi's bell, but the forbidden troops also quickly regained their clarity. Zheng Qi felt another surge of energy and blood, and took out a handful of talismans again with a ferocious expression. The angrier he became, the more he took advantage of Ling Chu's carelessness. But her movements were unambiguous. She raised her hand lightly, and the small hammer was already hitting Zheng Qi fiercely. Seeing the small hammer approaching fiercely, Zheng Qi panicked. Along the way, he has learned that this seemingly inconspicuous little hammer is actually much more than that. But even if he was wary, he was not immune to its power. His wrist was smashed. The strange rattle fell to the ground and was smashed into a piece of scrap metal by a small hammer. Zheng Qi was so painful that he rolled on the ground holding his weirdly twisted wrist. Wei Feng was in severe pain in his head just now due to the stimulation of the ringing bell, and because he didn't help Ling Chu hit anyone, he was angry. He rushed over and kicked him hard. Zheng Qi rolled backwards several times and lay motionless on the ground. He probably fainted. Commander Peng and all the imperial guards looked at each other. The princess was too brave. After just a few encounters, Zheng Qi became furious and beat him to the point of death. The imperial guards, who were highly skilled in martial arts, had no use for them at all. Everyone thought Zheng Qi had fainted and died. Unexpectedly, he suddenly raised his head, holding a piece of blood-soaked talisman in his left hand, and smiled ferociously at everyone. "I curse you with my life, and you will all die." In order to prevent Ling Chu from destroying his spell, Zheng Qi secretly cursed him with his own blood while he was pretending to be unconscious. In fact, this wilderness was a place he specially selected. It looked like there were only piles of rocks and grass, but it was actually a mass grave. The spell was completed, and countless ghosts crawled out of the rocks. When he smelled the breath of a living person, he immediately rushed towards everyone like a hungry beast. Zheng Qi laughed wildly with joy. Even if the princess knew magic, it would be hard for her to fight with two fists. There were hundreds of ghosts here and they would definitely eat their souls alive. Zheng Qi could not wait to dream of a high-ranking official and a generous salary. These people who died in mass burials had different causes of death, and the evil spirits on their bodies after becoming ghosts were particularly heavy. Hunted by the evil aura on their bodies, a ray of red light suddenly flashed across Ling Chu's forehead. The speed was too fast, and everyone's attention was on Zheng Qi, so no one noticed. Only Zheng Qi suddenly felt uneasy. Just now, he suddenly felt a little creepy. Just taking a closer look, there was nothing unusual, so he thought it was just his illusion. However, just as Zheng Qi was dazed for a moment, the little hammer had already wiped out all the ghosts. There is not a single one left. The emperor and the imperial guards breathed a sigh of relief. However, Ning Chui stood beside Ling Chu with his hands behind his hands, and there was a hint of worry in his eyes. Seeing that great things were about to happen, they were ruined. In addition, the ghost was destroyed. Zheng Qi suffered a backlash and vomited a pool of blood. But he still glared at Ling Chu bitterly. So what if you broke my formation? You don't even think about walking out of this place alive today. Thanks to Tian Xiao, Kai Yuning, Red Apple 213, Hung 87, Thurholik, Red Apple 213, Hang Jichuishang and other book friends for their monthly support. Thanks to Ixixi, Chi Liuhe. DB 0808292220201007, Pros. BA, Pen Yongfang, Chen, Why We Grow Old, Feng Kishan, V 2017031819143085, Flowery Path, Happy and Casual, Like a Shadow, Caterpillar, Afontes McDonald's, 20230521742110, Yan Guxing, 04, Crystal at Diamond, China Fuse, Hangzhou, Yunyun Zongshen, Lalang Zixi, 1402121840211428, Guan. DC, Daoyo. EB, This Moment, Laugh With You, Star and Sky, Chen, Why We Grow Old, Pros. BA and other book friends recommendation votes support it. Thanks to Hungziu and the book friends who support Hungziu. Please vote. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 432. Aren't you going to take action and wait to be dealt with? Zheng Qi was originally proud of his ability and wanted to use his own formation to let the ghosts kill the emperor and a group of forbidden soldiers. In this way, even if someone doubted the cause of the emperor's death, they would only think that he died at the hands of those ghosts. Not only was he able to escape cleanly, but for such a great contribution, the people above him will also remember his first contribution, and he will be able to achieve success in the future. Zheng Qi tried his best but failed in the end. He had to get those people to come forward. Swish swish. An overwhelming barrage of arrows were shot from all directions. Kill, along with the rain of arrows, countless masked men came towards the mass graves to kill. Protect him, Commander Peng's face suddenly changed, he shouted, and he immediately protected the emperor. The rest of the imperial army quickly surrounded the emperor, using a dense human wall to protect him in the middle. Everyone is ready to meet the enemy. But no one expected that Ling Chu waved his hand gently, and a big shovel suddenly appeared. After a series of clanging metal collision sounds, all the arrows that were shot in a dense manner were shot back by it. After the screams, the scene fell silent. Everyone looked at Ling Chu in surprise, shocked by her harsh methods. No one expected that she would kill all the men in black. Aware of everyone's attention, Ning Chui's face quickly darkened. He moved his body to stand in front of Ling Chu, blocking everyone's line of sight, and then said in a deep voice, "Your Majesty, this matter." As soon as Ning Chui opened his mouth, the emperor knew what he was going to say. Before he could finish speaking, he raised his hand and interrupted him. Well done to Princess Jiashan on this matter. No matter what their identity is, these people dare to collude with Zheng Qi to intercept and kill me. They deserve to die. Killing them is a good idea. Ning Chui was a little surprised by the emperor's attitude, and felt a little relieved. The imperial guards looked at each other. They all knew that those men in black deserved to be killed. What surprised them was when Princess Jiashan became so ruthless. Although he was confused, the emperor made his attitude clear. No matter what other people thought, they all agreed with the emperor's words and praised Ling Chu for killing well. Zheng Qi's blood surged. He didn't expect those men in black to be so useless. They were wiped out with just one mask. At this point, he regretted it, but he had no way to turn back and had to go all the way to the dark side. "Why are you still standing there?" If you become a ghost, you won't kill anyone. The mission has not been completed. Even if you become a ghost, your master will not let you go. Ugh. Zhang Qi looked crazy and roared at the dead men in black, but some ghosts rushed towards the emperor and others again. But before Zhang Qi could finish his words, he was killed by Ning Chui with a sword. Zhang Qi's soul separated from his body and rushed towards Ling Chu with overwhelming anger. You deserve to die, you ruined my big event. Ling Chu was standing aside, his eyelashes lowered, and he was unusually quiet. But when Zhang Qi rushed toward her, the red light on Ling Chu's forehead flashed again. But she didn't hide or dodge, but looked at Zhang Qi with a cold face. Meeting her scarlet gaze, Zhang Qi's soul suddenly shuddered. Ling Chu suddenly smiled at him, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. Raise your hand and wave a piece of talisman paper lightly. Zhang Qi's ghost eyes were startled, and he turned around and wanted to run away. But as soon as he turned around, the talisman fell on him, and he was out of his mind before he even screamed. Ling Chu didn't even look at them. He summoned a shovel and a small hammer with an expressionless face and wiped out all the ghosts of the men in black. Her speed was so fast that even Ning Chui didn't have time to stop her. At this moment, there was a rapid sound of horse hooves in the distance, accompanied by a loud shout, Xiao Si. Ling Chu was shocked, third senior brother. Qing Feng jumped off the horse and walked quickly to Ling Chu. He scanned her from beginning to end and felt relieved when he saw that she was fine. You can see the corpses lying in various directions, and you can frown. Looking at these people who had just died, their bodies were not stiff yet, but he did not see their souls. But it was clear that he was still quite far away, and he could feel the strong evil aura. Qing Feng nodded doubtfully, and his expression suddenly changed on Ling Chu's face. Zia, you. I didn't notice it before, this would not be aware of Ling Chu's body. Qing Feng was full of questions, his eyes swept over the emperor and the imperial guards beside him. He had to swallow his unspoken words and turn to pay tribute to the emperor. The emperor is so perceptive. He knew from the look on his face that he had something to ask Ling Chu. But he didn't ask any more questions. Instead, he said he wanted to rest and left with the imperial guards around him, leaving the space to them. When they were far away, Qing Feng asked, Zia, what's going on? Ling Chu's eyes fell faintly on the corpses. After a long while, he said hoarsely, I killed them, and their souls were also destroyed. Qing Feng frowned and stopped talking. Ning Chui glanced at him, turned to Ling Chu and said, you did nothing wrong, there is no need to feel guilty. If you don't kill them, if something happens to the emperor, the world will be in chaos, and more people will die. Qing Feng was worried about Ning Chui and did not want to ask Ling Chu in front of him. But Ling Chu had no intention of hiding it from Ning Chui. She was uneasy about the changes in her body, so she could take the opportunity to ask Qing Feng. Sun Yuanzhang said that she was in coma in Deluo Mountain because her bones were too weak and she lost strength due to fatigue. But in fact, Ling Chu knew it wasn't the case. The main reason for her coma was that the system absorbed too much energy and needed to be upgraded. Originally she would not have fainted, but she had been on the road after leaving the capital and used a shovel and a small hammer many times, which inevitably consumed a lot of energy. When the system absorbed the emerald ore, energy was flowing in and out of her body, exceeding her body's load. It was just in time for a system upgrade that I fainted. She was able to wake up so quickly because the system upgrade was completed and her body also benefited a lot. In addition, she saved the lives of 30,000 people in Yangkou County, which earned her a lot of merit. This made her health much better than before. This is a good thing. But Ling Chu discovered that there seemed to be a change in her body when she was in a coma. She couldn't say what it was exactly. It felt like there was an unknown energy in her body that broke through the seal. She didn't know whether the changes in her body were good or bad, and she woke up before she could study them. Later, When she saw Ning Chui's face and learned that the emperor was in danger, she didn't think much about it and immediately rushed over with Ning Chui. Zheng Qi thought she was pretending to be unconscious and followed them secretly, only to appear at the critical moment and save the emperor and his party. But it was actually because she exchanged the Shiqi talisman from the system that she was able to arrive in time. She was feeling much better and no longer had to worry about her soul returning to the underworld at any time, which made her very happy. But when he saw the ghosts summoned by Zheng Qi, Ling Chu found that his consciousness began to lose control. Although she is a Taoist and can kill ghosts, not all ghosts can be killed. As a Taoist, she has many rules. But when she saw those ghosts, she not only let the little hammer destroy them all. When the men in black came to kill them, she even killed them all. Thanks to CMEA for the reward of 100 book coins. Thanks to 16110109564148 Penglai Jiangxiu, Angel 12345596, Yei 6, Caterpillar and other book friends for their monthly support. Thanks to 20231008623025, Chi Liuhe. DB, Panax Noto Ginseng. DB, Sihide, 202007061304253228, Qingxia Chuking. De, Yunwu Sishishan, Fenkasheng, free as the wine 459, CMEA, .v, 202210041243343689, Fair Shui Piaoping, Why We Grow Old, CHLWCH, Forget Me Not, Scar Red, Crystal at Diamond, Silent Blessing, Star and Sky, 1402121840214228, All Living Things, Official. DC, This Moment, Laugh With You, Happy Baby, supported by the recommendation votes of book friends such as Anshiruosa 241, Ching Ching, Ed, Care, and Ixixi. Thanks to Hungziu and the book friends who support Hungziu. Daily request, votes. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 433. Chapter 425 Fear. The unknown energy in his body made Ling Chu a little scared. The number of people killed today was dozens of times greater than the number of people she and the original owner had killed in their 2 lifetimes combined. If she hadn't saved the lives of more than 30,000 people in Yanqu County when the flood came, and had a lot of merits and virtues to protect herself, she would have died by now. But even so, after killing so many assassins this time, most of the merits gained before they had time to keep warm have been offset. Ling Chu couldn't imagine how terrifying it would be for him to become a murderous maniac in the future if he couldn't control that energy. Seeing that her face was pale, Ning Chui's heart twisted and she looked at Qing Feng aside. Your Majesty, do you know what's going on? Qing Feng glanced at him and wondered what happened to Mr. Ning and Xiao Si along the way. The junior sister didn't even avoid him for such a big thing. As for the situation of the junior sister, Qing Feng looked at Ling Chu seriously. If I guess correctly, after you were sent to Xianqing Temple by Dong's mother-in-law, the master put a seal on you. As for why master wants to seal the energy in you, senior brother doesn't know. We can only wait until we get to Xianqing Temple and ask the master for clarification. Qing Feng regretted it again. It was all because he was young and had troubles. He always listened to the master's words in one ear and out the other. If he had asked a few more questions when he heard his master telling his senior brother about his junior master, he wouldn't be as helpless as he is now. Seeing Ling Chu's expression turned ugly, Qing Feng pretended to be relaxed and said, although you killed those assassins, Master Ning was right. Those people who dared to risk the world's disapproval to assassinate the emperor deserve to die. You don't need to feel guilty. As for your situation, there is no need to worry. I had already written to Master when I left Beijing, and he and senior brother will also go back to Guanli. Senior brother will accompany you back to Xianqing Temple and nothing will happen to you, so just relax. Qingfeng didn't lie. Originally, Dingyuan Prince's mansion held a hairpin ceremony for Ling Chu, and he was supposed to attend. Just because he knew that his parents planned to use the banquet at Dingyuan Palace to find a wife for him. But he didn't want to get married yet, let alone be dragged by his parents to see the girl at Ling Chu's banquet, so he didn't go to Dingyuan Prince's mansion. Instead, he made excuses and left home. It was several days later when he learned that the emperor suddenly left the capital for Xianqing Temple and took Ling Chu with him. Qingfeng didn't know what happened, but he told Ling Chu a fortune teller, and the fortune teller showed great misfortune. So he first wrote to his master, informing the emperor and his junior sister about their departure from the capital, and also attached the hexagram to the letter. Then he hurriedly left Beijing and chased him all the way. Ling Chu originally wanted to know about the original owner from Qingfeng, but he didn't know. But now she has slowly calmed down. Since Master Xianyi once placed a seal on the original owner, he must know what is going on. Now we can only wait until we get to Xianqing Temple to ask more questions. Seeing that Ling Chu's complexion began to improve, Ning Chui and Qingfeng breathed a sigh of relief. The emperor's face was livid at this moment. After the assassins were killed by Ling Chu, Commander Pang led his people to clean up the bodies. As a result, after pulling off the masks of those people, Commander Pang recognized that the leader was actually the Minister of War, a general under Su Cheng's command. The Minister of War is the father of the Queen and the grandfather of the Prince. This assassin belongs to Su Cheng, so it is self-evident who sent him. The emperor was filled with rage. Xiao Yuanzhao is his first child. He has worked hard to raise him since he was a child and has high hopes for him. He had been granted the title of Crown Prince long ago, and now he was asked to supervise the country. Now he sent people to assassinate his father. What does he want to do? Could it be that he couldn't wait any longer and wanted to let him die outside while he was away from Beijing so that he could ascend the throne as soon as possible? Commander Pang stood on one side, his eyes lowered and silent, and he even breathed very lightly. I am afraid that if I am not careful, I will become a fish in the pond that will cause disaster to the city gate. When he saw Ning Chui and others walking over, he breathed a sigh of relief. Knowing that the assassin was a member of the Ministry of War, Ning Chui was not surprised. As the commander of the royal guards, he knew much more than the emperor. I have known for a long time that those princes are very ambitious. In order to obtain the supreme position, they suppressed each other in various ways, overtly and covertly, and resorted to endless means of poisoning, murder, and assassination. The Minister of War is actually not as loyal as he appears. Now that the emperor has left the capital, it is not surprising that the prince has other ideas. In this regard, Ning Chui said nothing. His status is awkward and nothing he says is appropriate. He also believed that the emperor made his own decisions freely in his heart and there was no need for him to say anything. As expected, the emperor did not speak. Just his eyes fell on Ning Chui, his expression a little complicated. But no one knew what he was thinking. After a long while, the emperor raised his head and glanced at the sky. Seeing that the forbidden army had disposed of the corpses of the assassins, the emperor gave the order to set off. The rest of the journey went smoothly. Every time they stopped to rest, Ling Chu and Qingfeng would make divinations and choose a suitable journey to avoid further accidents. With the of the two brothers and sisters, the group finally arrived at Xianqing Temple half a month later. Stopping at the gate of the Taoist temple in the dust, looking at the three simple and heavy characters on the plaque, and listening to the melodious bells, Ling Chu's heart, which had been hanging all the way, finally relaxed. Hearing the commotion, a Taoist priest came out to greet him. The Taoist priest was very surprised to see the emperor and a group of forbidden soldiers. But when he saw Qingfeng and Ling Chu, he became happy again. The emperor couldn't wait to see Ning Chu. After asking about her location, he immediately went to meet someone. Ling Chu felt relieved when she arrived at Xianqing Temple. She was not going to pay attention to the emperor's affairs. I was going to meet master with Qing Feng, but I didn't expect to be told that Xianyajin and the other two brothers had not returned. Ling Chu sighed and could only go down to rest first. Her body has reached its limit after driving non-stop all the way, and she just wants to sleep well for a few days and nights. I just don't know what the emperor thinks. Halfway through, Mr. An unexpectedly turned back. Not only did he call Ning Chui, but he also asked her to go with him. Ling Chu was surprised. The emperor asked Ning Chui to see Ning Chu, she could understand. But why let her go as an outsider? She was not interested in the emperor and Ning Chu's affairs at all, and did not want to go at all. Unicorn could guess what Ling Chu was thinking, but he couldn't say anything about the emperor's decision. Princess, this is the emperor's order. Go quickly, don't keep the emperor waiting. Ning Chui didn't move. Seeing Ling Chu's brows furrowing, he said silently, if you don't want to go, don't force it. Ling Chu twitched the corner of her mouth. The emperor's oral instructions were equivalent to imperial edicts. She couldn't disobey them. Forget it, she is Ning Chui's biological mother after all, so she should go and say hello. Go to the meeting early and rest early. Let's go. Ning Chui was a little surprised when she agreed. He was startled for a moment before lifting his heels. Qing Feng looked at their leaving figures and frowned. Along the way, he didn't understand the emperor's attitude towards his junior sister, and now he actually asked her to see that Ning Chu. He didn't want his junior sister to go, but he couldn't stop it. Qing Feng sighed and could only hope that the master would come back soon. Thanks to Penglai Jiangxiu, Happy Baby, China Fuse, and other book friends for their monthly support. Thanks to Panax Noto Ginseng. DB 0808292220201007, Chi Liuhe. DB Yang.ba, Red Leaves Fluttering. E. Prose. BA, Chen, 641,417, Yulian Meng. BC, I heard this person in the village. V. Prose. BA, All Living Things, Love Alice, CHLWCH, Why Do You Grow Old, 202007061304253228. DC, China Fuse, This Moment, Laugh With You, XXC, Exquisite Heart. AE 1402121840214228, Lalang Zixi, Sankai. DB, Forget Me Not and other book friends recommend and vote for support. Thanks to Hungzio for supporting book friends, and thanks to Hungzio for supporting book friends. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 434. Ning Chu is an outsider and a woman. She knows how inconvenient it is to live in a Taoist temple. There is a courtyard built with bamboo in the back hill of Suankigwan, where Ning Chu lives. The emperor was worried that Ning Chu would leave without saying goodbye, just like before if she knew he was coming to Xianqing Temple, so he did not let anyone inform her. Suppressing his excitement, the emperor walked quickly towards the back mountain. Seeing a familiar figure sitting at the stone table from a distance, the emperor was so nervous that he even held his breath. He didn't lift his feet again until his chest felt tight and painful. Back then, Ning Chu left without saying goodbye. He had too many things to ask her. The emperor walked forward in 3 steps and then called out through a fence, Chu Chu. This call was made countless times by the emperor in his heart and in his dreams. It doesn't feel strange at all when I shout again after so many years. But the emperor's voice contained excitement and urgency. The woman sitting in the courtyard drinking tea was shocked. The teacup in his hand fell on the table with a clatter, and the tea spread all over the table. But she ignored it. Look back slowly. Ning Chu's eyes fell on the emperor's face, shocked and surprised. However, after a while, she looked away. fell on Ning Chui. Year. Even after he was born, Ning Chuchu sent him back to Ning Kuagong's mansion, and he hadn't seen him for so many years. However, mother and son are close to each other, and she knows that this is her son without asking. Besides, Ning Chui and the emperor were standing together, and their appearance was so similar. Ning Chuchu's eyes fell firmly on Ning Chui, her eyes turned red, and she involuntarily stood up from the stone bench and walked towards him eagerly. Ning Chui said nothing, pursed her lips, and cast complex eyes on the woman running towards him. I don't know whether Ning Chuchu was too excited to see her son, or whether she was too sad to see him not responding to her. Or both. Ning Chuchu walked to and stood in front of Ning Chui, glanced at him eagerly, cautiously called out "Year," and suddenly fainted. Ning Chui's face changed slightly, and she subconsciously reached out to help her. However, the emperor was one step ahead of him. Chu-chu. Ever since seeing Ning Chuchu, the emperor's eyes have never left her. Originally, he was a little bit disgusted when he saw her wholeheartedly focused on Ning Chui. Seeing that she suddenly fainted, he couldn't care about anything else and quickly reached out to hug her. He turned around and shouted to Mr. N, who was standing far away, "Go and ask Sun Yuan Zheng to come over." Yunakan didn't expect that he would faint as soon as he met Ning Chuchu and was shocked. He hurriedly left to invite Sun Yuan Zheng. The emperor held the man in his arms and shouted several times. Seeing that she didn't respond, he could only hold her and strode towards the bamboo house. Ning Chui glanced at his back and slowly retracted his hand. Before leaving the capital, he had never thought that his biological mother would be the aunt in Duke Ningguo's house who was rarely mentioned and who died early before she got married. He heard the dispute between the emperor and Ning Kuagong at the inn, and learned that his mother, my dear friend, is Ning Chuchu. He had many things to ask him. I wanted to ask her why she gave birth to him, but she didn't want to. I want to ask her why she has never come back to see me in all these years. Why was his life experience not informed? Let him suffer all the cold treatment from Ningguo's wife, as well as all kinds of criticism from the world about his illegitimate son. There are many, many things he wants to ask. But seeing her faint now, he suddenly didn't want to ask anything. The emperor carried Ning Chuchu into the house. Yunakan went to invite Sun Yuan Zheng and he still hadn't come back. The other custodes are not here either. It's very quiet in the backyard. Ling Chu stood by silently and sighed slightly in his heart when he saw Ning Chui's face was tense all the time. She didn't know what happened between Ning Chuchu and the emperor back then. But she must have had a hard time these past few years. Ning Chuchu has a stunning appearance, but her complexion is very bad, and there is a deep Sichuan pattern between her eyebrows. This is the result of years of frowning, which shows that she must be depressed for a long time and rarely happy. As a girl, she will definitely be criticized by the world if she gets pregnant out of wedlock. Even if she hid it, not many people knew. But after she gave birth to Ning Chui, she sent him back to Ning Kuagong's mansion. Mother and son have not seen each other for 20 years, and they are in a state of sadness and pain. You don't need to think about it to know that it is uncomfortable. But Ning Chui's life was no easier than hers, not to mention Mrs. Ningguo's neglect of him for many years. The rumors that the emperor had an illegitimate son also caused him to be criticized a lot. Thanks to his perseverance, he did not become cynical under the ridicule of others. Ling Chu knew that Ning Chui must be in a complicated mood at the moment, but she didn't say anything to comfort her. She just pulled him into the yard and asked him to sit down on the stone bench where Ning Chuchu was sitting before. She sat down on the other side, then reached out and poured 2 cups of tea, handed 1 cup to him, and took one herself. Sitting silently with him, waiting for Sun Yuan Zheng to come over to see Ning Chuchu. Ning Chui never spoke, but he knew that she was afraid that he would be sad and deliberately stayed with him. After reaching out to take the teacup, Ning Chui raised his eyes to look at Ling Chu and said slowly, "Don't worry, I'm fine. Ling Chu was a little surprised to see him adjusting his mood so quickly. But when I think about it, I'm not surprised. Regardless of his life experience or his iron-blooded methods while on duty in Jinyue, there are many people who look at him openly or covertly. If he didn't have extraordinary self-control, how could he withstand the rumors? Sun Yuanzhang came very quickly. Knowing the importance of Ning Chuchu in the emperor's heart, Yunakan invited him over as quickly as possible. After checking Ning Chuchu's pulse, Sun Yuanzhang looked very unhappy. He did not hide Ning Chuchu's situation and told the emperor directly. Ning Chuchu has run out of oil and her lamp has dried up, and she has less than 2 months left to live. Even if he exhausted all his lifelong learning, he could only let her live for 3 or 2 months longer at most. The emperor looked sad. Ning Chui's face didn't look good either. Even though Ning Chuchu gave birth to him, he sent him back to Duke Ning's mansion. But she is his biological mother after all, and mother and child are connected. How could he feel when he learned that she was not going to die soon? Ning Chuchu's condition required more rest, and Sun Yuanzhang originally planned to let her continue to sleep. But Ning Chuchu woke up with Ning Chui in mind. After opening her eyes, Ning Chuchu did not look at the emperor, but looked at Ning Chui with excitement. Ling Chu knew that they must have a lot to say, so she did not stay in the room and quietly left. As soon as he walked into the yard, he saw Sun Yuanzhang coming out with a medicine box. Ling Chu was very tired and actually wanted to go back to the Taoist temple to rest. But she was called here by the emperor, and he didn't say anything, so she couldn't leave. Sun Yuanzhang was also worried that if something happened to Ning Chuchu again, the emperor would send someone to find him again, so he simply stayed. So the two of them sat down at the stone table in the courtyard, drinking tea and chatting. I don't know how long it took, but Yunakan suddenly came to send a message, saying that Ning Chuchu wanted to see her. I don't know what the 3 people were talking about in the room, but Ning Chuchu was all smiles when she saw her. He took off the bracelet he was wearing and put it into her hand without saying a word. The scrutinizing eyes made Ling Chu feel like an ugly daughter-in-law meeting her parents-in-law. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 435. This, I can't accept it. Ning Chuchu's appraising eyes made Ling Chu's cheeks turn red, and she subconsciously wanted to refuse. Ning Chuchu took her hand and smiled gently. It's a gift from the elders, and you can't refuse it. I fell in love with you as soon as I saw you. It's just a small meeting gift, so wear it. The emperor sat aside and smiled. Princess Jiashan, please keep it. This is a rare meeting gift. I want it, but I don't have it yet. Although the emperor was smiling and his tone was kind, Ling Chu could see a hint of heat and jealousy in his expression. Ling Chu was surprised for a moment, but then he understood again. Since the whole world belongs to the emperor, it's naturally not the bracelet that he's jealous of. It's Ning Chuchu's attitude towards her that he's jealous of. The emperor felt quite unhappy. Ning Chuchu was excited and happy to see Ning Chui. Now she also had an affectionate attitude toward Ling Chu, but she was cold towards him. He couldn't get angry yet, after all, he had betrayed her. Ning Chui didn't speak, just stood aside silently, but looked at Ling Chu with tender eyes. Ling Chu hesitated for a while and finally accepted the bracelet. The smile on Ning Chuchu's face became even brighter. She couldn't wait to hold Ling Chu and Ning Chui and not let go. But the emperor finally met Ning Chuchu, and he still had a lot to say to her. How would he like to see Ning Chui and Ling Chu standing in front of him and Chu? Seeing Ling Chu put away the bracelet, he immediately issued an order to expel the guests. You have traveled for such a long time and you are tired. Go down and rest first. Ning Chuchu smiled, but she also knew that since the emperor came to Xianqing Temple, it was time to settle what happened back then. She patted Ling Chu's hand and looked at her and Ning Chui with a look of reluctance. You guys go down and have a rest first. I'll send people down the mountain to buy some fresh ingredients. You must come over tomorrow and try my cooking. The emperor has never tasted Ning Chuchu's cooking, how dare Ling Chu let her cook? But seeing Ning Chuchu looking at her expectantly, she couldn't refuse, so she could only smile politely and nod, okay. Ning Chui didn't say anything, but he looked pretty good. Although Ning Chuchu was a little disappointed, she also knew that there was no rush. She gave birth to Ning Chui, but never raised him for a day. Naturally, her son was not affectionate to her. She owed her son a lot, but he didn't show any resentment toward her, which made her happy. The emperor's look of driving people away was so obvious that Ling Chu didn't want to stay any longer, so he took the opportunity to say goodbye. Ning Chui followed her outside silently. After the two men retreated, the emperor couldn't wait to ask what happened back then. Why did you leave without saying goodbye? Did you know that I was looking for you everywhere like crazy? But you faked your death and flew away, even gave birth to Year, and you still concealed his identity. What happened that year? When mentioning what happened back then, the emperor could not help but look excited. But Ning Chuchu looked calm. Back then, she loved and hated him. Sad, desperate, painful. But after so many years, she has let it go. She is no longer the girl who only had love in her eyes. Now that she is seriously ill and her time is running out, she just wants to spend the remaining days with her son. Perform some responsibilities as a mother. Ning Chuchu glanced at the emperor unexpectedly, a little surprised by his excitement. She thought that after so many years, he had married the queen and had countless concubines, and he had already forgotten what happened back then. Back then, after that night, I was filled with joy, waiting for you to come to Duke Ning's mansion to propose marriage. But I waited and waited, but no one came from your mansion. But Queen Su came and concubine came. Speaking of what happened back then, Ning Chuchu's voice was cold and calm. But at that time, she was in pain. Originally, she and Xiao Jingzong were in love. Before he ascended the throne, she happily went to him and wanted to ask him when he would find someone to propose marriage. Result: it was discovered that he had taken an aphrodisiac. Xiao Jingzong didn't want to let her go as soon as he saw her. They loved each other at that time, and he had already promised to marry her. Seeing that he could bear the pain, she softened her heart and gave him her innocence. After waking up, she was shy and flustered, so she quietly ran back to the house before he woke up. She was filled with joy as she waited for him to find a matchmaker to propose marriage. But she waited and waited, but there was still no news. Just when she couldn't help but want to ask him, Queen Su, who had handed the handkerchief to Su Yuanyu, ran to her boudoir with a shy and happy look. In front of her, he took off his clothes and pointed at the ambiguous red marks all over his body to tell her. The Xiao family has already made a betrothal to her, and Xiao Jingzong admires her so much that he has already treated her as Duke of Zhou. He wanted her to be his wife and his queen. Su Yuanyu's words were like a thunderbolt from the blue, which struck Ning Chuchu so painfully that she wished she could not live. She didn't believe that Xiao Jingzong had just promised to marry her, but in the next moment he had physical intimacy with another woman and wanted to marry her as his queen. But Su Yuanyu showed her the marriage contract agreed upon by the Xiao and Su families. The names written clearly above are hers and Xiao Jingzong's. Ning Chuchu was hit hard, but it was not over yet. Within 2 days, and Mei Ying also came to announce the good news to her. In order to get the support of Anjia, Xiao Jingzong successfully ascended the throne. She also made a marriage contract with the An family and promised to marry An Mei Ying as a noble concubine after she ascended the throne. Ning Chuchu didn't want to believe that she fell in love with the wrong person, but the jade pendant and mating war was a token of love exchanged between her and Xiao Jingzong. A man who said he loved her and wanted to marry her changed his mind in the blink of an eye. He also gave the love token she gave him to his future concubines. What could be more shocking to her than this? Xiao Jingzong's change of heart made Ning Chuchu heartbroken, and the hickeys on Su Yuanyu and Mei made her even more jealous and desperate. Originally, she wanted to wait for Xiao Jingzong to give her an explanation, but he never showed up. In desperation, she had no choice but to leave Kyoto. It wasn't long before she discovered she was pregnant. Ning Chuchu was afraid that her unmarried pregnancy would be discovered, so she could only secretly take her maid with her, leave her hometown, and travel far away. It wasn't until Ning Chui was born a year later that he was sent back to the Ningguo Duke's mansion. The emperor has been listening quietly, and wanted to interrupt Ning Chuchu several times, but finally held back. After hearing the reason, the emperor's face was as green as ever, and he was so angry that he wanted to kill someone with a knife. But his anger was not towards Ning Chuchu, but towards Queen Su and concubine. I was hit by an aphrodisiac and wanted to clear your name. I promised to marry you, and it was not a lie. When I woke up, I went back to my house and told my parents that I would find a matchmaker to propose marriage to you. It's just that my parents didn't agree at the time, and I found that the jade pendant you gave me was missing. I could only plead with my parents to agree to the marriage, and at the same time look for the jade pendant everywhere, but I didn't expect that when I finally got my parents to nod, I found that you were missing. I was looking for you everywhere like crazy, almost digging 3 feet into the ground in Kyoto. However, your elder brother told me that you accidentally fell into the water and died in your hometown. I didn't expect that Su Yuanyu and Mei had gone to find you. At that time, my whole mind was focused on you, and I never touched a finger on them. I was in pain for a long time when I learned that you were dead. I married them after I ascended the throne. If you don't believe it, you can come back to Beijing with me and confront them face to face. Ning Chuchu looked at the emperor calmly, without doubting his words. Thank you, Shwe'er and Ji Bao. Have you lost weight today? There is this person in the village, Hung Mei, 20211015200146945 monthly vote support. Thanks 201703181914308335. 1311192132222849, Hung Mei, Feng Kishan, 201706161940236620, V, Guangguan. DC, Silent Blessings, Huiy.ea, Exquisite Heart. AE, Fei Wenli, Shwe'er, 1402121840214228, This Moment, Laugh With You, China Fuse, Xiaoqiu, Scar Red, All Living Things, Li Happy Baby, Lazy Zixi, CHLWCH, Squinting Smile, Why You Grow Old, The End of the World, Happy Baby, Xianbin, 202007061304253228, Pros. BA, Ixixi, Yang.BA and other book friends recommend and vote for support. Thanks to the book friends supported by Hungziu. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 436. Chapter 428, Surrounding Xianqing Temple. At this moment, Ning Chuchu looked calm, with no love or hatred in her eyes. She believed that the emperor did not lie to her. But at that time, she was blinded by pain and jealousy, and could not distinguish the words of Su Yuanyu and Mei. She was away from home and gave birth to Ning Chui. Many years passed. After thinking back over and over again, bit by bit, she slowly came to understand that maybe the truth of the matter was not what she had heard. After all, Xiao Jingzong really loved her at that time. According to his personality, even if he regretted not wanting to marry her, he would have made it clear to her face to face. Rather than marrying someone else without saying a word, She also gave her token of love to the concubine. It's a pity that she understood it too late. Xiao Jingzong had already married the Su family and also adopted the An family as his concubine. She once thought about going back to settle the accounts with Su and An, but when she thought about Xiao Jingzong marrying them in the end, she couldn't calm down after all. She couldn't bear to think about her son again. She gave birth to him but did not raise him, so she owed a lot. Ning Chui is already Ning Qiagong's young master, and she can't bear to go back and ruin his life. Seeing that Ning Chuchu remained silent, the emperor was angry, but he couldn't bear to blame her. He didn't expect that the queen and concubine would dare to hide it from him and work together to deceive Ning Chuchu. You come back to Beijing with me, and I will definitely ask all the doctors to cure you. I will also deal with the Su family and the An family, and give you an explanation. The emperor loved Ning Chuchu back then, but his feelings for her have not changed now. Ning Chuchu doesn't need it. What happened back then has passed. Now Su is the queen and An is the concubine. Their children, one is the prince and the other is the second prince, have grown up. Even if you want to deal with their mother, they will not agree. Although Mr. Su and Mr. An deceived me, I was also wrong. If I hadn't been blinded by pain and jealousy and went to you in person to find out, the plan between the two of them would not have succeeded. You and I are not destined to be together in this life, it is God's will. Now that I don't have much time, I just want to accompany ye well. I only hope that after I pass away, the emperor can treat him well. It is we who owe him. Ning Chuchu spoke calmly, but the emperor felt very uncomfortable in his heart. He was also wrong about what happened back then. When his parents objected to his marriage to Chuchu, his attitude was not strong enough. I lost my jade pendant, but I didn't dare to tell her frankly for fear that she would be unhappy. During the days when Chuchu was missing, he should not have listened to the words of Mrsu and Mrsan, openly and secretly, saying that she had moved on and not fallen in love with someone else, or even eloped and left Kyoto. The emperor wanted to persuade Ning Chuchu to return to Beijing with him, but Ning Chuchu was unwilling. The two people talked for a long time but couldn't reach an agreement. The emperor couldn't bear to force her, so he could only stay temporarily. Ning Chuchu did the cooking herself and made a large table of delicious food, and asked people to call Ning Chui and Ling Chu. But Ling Chu excused himself from feeling unwell and did not go there. She knew that the emperor definitely wanted to be with Ning Chuchu all the time, and she was an outsider and didn't want to get involved. Unexpectedly, when Ning Chuchu heard that she was not feeling well, she immediately packed a large food box with the food she cooked and took the maid to her residence personally. And Ning Chui followed without saying a word. The emperor was left alone in front of a table full of food, angry and helpless. But one is the woman he loves deeply, and the other is his biological son, neither of whom can be scolded. After being annoyed for a while, the emperor also walked to Ling Chu's courtyard. Eunuchan quickly called a few imperial soldiers and carried the food over. Ling Chu had a severe headache, but no matter which one it was, she couldn't avoid it. I can only smile and accompany the family of 3 to eat. Qing Feng simply stepped in and asked someone to set out a pair of bowls and chopsticks for him. Only Ning Chuchu enjoyed this meal the most. With her son by her side, she is always smiling even when she is eating bran-thick vegetables. Ning Chuchu wished she could stay with Ning Chui all the time, but it was very inconvenient for him to live in a Taoist temple. Perhaps because he saw that Ning Chui was interested in Ling Chu, in order to help his son win the beauty as soon as possible, Ning Chuchu simply moved to Ling Chu's yard. Regardless of other people's objections, he cooks 3 meals a day by himself. As for the emperor and Ning Chui, father and son, although they didn't talk much, they showed up on time for every meal. Ling Chu looked amused and helpless, but it was hard to say anything. After all, Ning Chuchu was very kind to her, and most of the meals she cooked were what she liked to eat. Seeing that she was thin, She insisted on making stewed tonic for her. She brought it to her personally and watched her eat it before putting away the dishes with a smile. After having some free time, he sent someone to buy a lot of cloth and came back to make clothes for Ning Chui and her. Ning Chu almost loved her as her own daughter, but Ling Chu was secretly quite uneasy. Because Ning Chu had a very cold attitude towards the emperor, although she did not drive him away, neither the supplements nor the clothes she made were the emperor's share. Ling Chu felt that the emperor looked at her and Ning Chui with jealous eyes, as if he wanted to kick them out so as not to prevent him from getting along with Ning Chu. If you put aside the status of the emperor, Ling Chu felt that this day was quite interesting. After all, not everyone has the opportunity to see the emperor deflated. In this way, Ling Chu spent 5 days with the family of 3. What Ling Chu didn't expect was that Xian Xingguan was surrounded by people before she could return to her master and 2 other senior brothers. What everyone did not expect was that the leading officers and soldiers turned out to be General Mingwei of the 4th rank. The reason for attacking Li Xian Xingguan was to harbor the remnants of the previous dynasty, and he came here to kill him according to the order. At first, everyone thought General N.A. Mingwei had made a mistake. However, Commander Pang came forward to identify himself and said that the emperor was in the Taoist temple, but General Mingwei did not believe it at all. Instead, he angrily accused Pang Tong of being a remnant of the previous dynasty, and ordered him to be shot without any explanation. If Ling Chu hadn't quietly hidden the shovel aside, Commander Pang would have been like a hedgehog when the arrows came. The emperor looked furious, but his heart felt like a 1,000-year-old cold pond. He really raised 2 good sons. The prince's people wanted him to die outside, and the second prince's people wanted to kill him as a remnant of the current dynasty. How could the emperor tolerate it when both his sons, who had worked so hard to bring him up, wanted him dead? General Mingwei is really tall and majestic. Do you want to kill me too? General Mingwei's pupils shrank when he saw the majestic emperor. However, thinking of the letter from the capital and the captured parents, wives, and children, he gritted his teeth and waved, "What the hell, who doesn't know that the emperor has been in the capital all the time? You, a remnant of the previous dynasty, dare to pretend to be the emperor, how brave you are. Come up to me and kill these remnants of the previous dynasty, and everyone will enjoy endless glory and wealth in the future. If he doesn't kill, his parents, wife, and children will die. But if it goes through, he will be the most distinguished king with a different surname in Kyoto." Looking at General Mingwei, who personally grabbed a knife and rushed towards the emperor, Ling Chu felt that either he was crazy or something had happened in Kyoto. Today seems to be the new year. Thank you all for your continued company.